Summer's over and this is the ideal time to take stock. What are the best books I've read so far and what are the worst? Now, I don't often speak about books I didn't like, but today I'll talk about both. These are the best and the worst of 2023 so far. Now, as always, I will be linking all of the books I talk about down below in the description, so you can do your own research. First, let's start down below with the DNFs, the books I did not finish. Now, I must say I don't often DNF a book. I always try to power through because otherwise how can you do a review? But sometimes I just can't finish a book. There's two DNFs this year so far, and the first is I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Tteokpokki by Korean author Baek. This was a book I thought I would love. This is a Asian book and I've been reading a lot of Asian authors of late, and it had great reviews online. Everyone was stark-ravingly mad about it, and I thought, why not, let's pick it up. And I didn't finish it. I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Tteokpokki is a strange combination between an autobiography and a self-help book. The subtitle is Conversations with My Therapist, and it is basically that. It is a book with short transcriptions of the conversations the author had with a therapist, and this is where it went wrong for me. Now, I do get the appeal of this book. I mean, there were sections that were immensely relatable, that I recognized myself in the author and that were actually very good. But those were rare for me. And all of the other sections felt strange and awkward and almost like I was some kind of voyeur looking at something I wasn't supposed to look at. I found the author a bit repeating themselves, even a bit whiny by the end, and I never ever finished the book. So, first DNF of this year, I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Tteokpokki by a Korean author, Baek. Second DNF was a New York Times bestseller, a book that a lot of people really love, and I didn't. I'm talking about Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. Again, this was a book I thought I would love, but in the end, I was wrong. It is a story about a young girl, Cleo, and her older lover, Frank, and their life in nowadays New York. I really wanted to love this book and I nearly finished it, promising myself it would get better and we would get the whole story about some of the characters in this book, but in the end, I don't think we did. I compared this book to New York City itself. A lot of things happen, there are many characters in it, but you never go deeper than just scratching the surface. It just didn't vibe with me, and in the end I didn't finish it. So, second TNF for 2023 so far is Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. Then let's talk about the letdowns, books I thought I would love or like, and I did finish, but in the end they ended up disappointing me. And first up, here it comes, is Fourth Wing. Again, I said it before, I'm not going to review it again, but Fourth Wing for me is two books. It is a romance book and a fantasy book. Separate those two and I would very much like to read the fantasy book again. And I am invested in the story and I will probably go back for the second part, which I think publishes somewhere in early November this year. I probably will read it because I'm interested in where this story goes. But the romance part was... I don't need this continuing pining and moaning and hoping he will enter the room and telling me how he smells and describing how you want to climb him and the things you want to... I don't need all of that. Just give me a decent fantasy book and I will happily read it. So, Fourth Wing, didn't hate it, but I could do with just a fantasy story. Second one that disappointed me is another immensely popular book, and that's Heartstopper by Oseman. I do love, as you can see behind me, a good graphic novel, and there are many good graphic novels. Heartstopper isn't just necessarily one of them. For my taste, it was too sweet, too lovey-dovey, too positive. If you're talking about serious topics like discrimination, like finding your own sexuality, then don't sugarcoat it. It's not all puppies and candy canes. I know there are a lot of people that absolutely love Heartstopper, especially now the Netflix series has aired, but again, simply wasn't for me. Third disappointment this year was the Christie affair by Nina de Gramont. You might know this or you might not, but in Agatha Christie's career there were 10 to 11 days that she vanished. She simply disappeared after finding out that her husband was having an affair, and up till today we still do not know where she was. Now, this book is a fictional book. It is just the author's take on where she was during those 10 days, and it is told from the perspective of the mistress of Agatha's husband. Love the setup. But as you know, I'm a big Agatha Christie fan, and if you're going to write a book about Agatha Christie, get your facts right. There were quite some opinions on Agatha's work I don't necessarily agree with, so in the end, this book didn't hit the mark for me. What can I say? I'm an Agatha Christie fanboy, and you don't talk trash in this house. Fourth disappointment was Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. Now, I do love a good Greek mythology retelling. We have lots of those in our collection. Stone Blind isn't necessarily one of the best. Now, this book tells the tale of Medusa. It just doesn't tell it very well. I do love the feminist retelling that starts from the perspective of the, in this case, monster Medusa. But so much more could have been done with this story. Some of the elements and some of the characters like Athena and Hermes actually annoyed the hell out of me. I know Greek gods can be petty, but they are rarely childish. The duo Athena and Hermes even felt as a comical relief to me, which is not something this story needed. So, like I said, bit of a disappointment, Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. And let's end this little list of disappointments with another graphic novel. I'm talking about Demon in the Woods by Leigh Bardugo. It is a story of how the Darkling became the ultimate villain, I guess. It is really well drawn, it has great artwork, but the story is something I felt I read before. Boy has special powers, boy has to keep them a secret because people do not understand. Boy meets girl, things go wrong. That's basically the story, and I must say there were much more interesting avenues Leigh Bardugo could have gone with this, but it feels like we have to publish this book because there is a new season coming to Netflix. So, last disappointment for today, and then we go on to more positive things. Demon in the Wood by Leigh Bardugo. Then we go to the surprises. Books I didn't think I would love, but people recommended them to me, said, I think you will like this book, so I gave them a try. And in the end, they surprised me in a good way. First one up is Anatomy, a love story by Dana Schwartz. Now, the love story part of the title already threw me off a bit because, as you know, I don't do romance. But I wouldn't necessarily call this book a classical romance book. This book reads more like historical fiction, perhaps a bit of alternate reality at the end, and yes, there is a love interest, but for me that wasn't what the book was about. This story is set in Edinburgh during the Victorian era, and it is all about medicine and how to get your hands on corpses. It tells the story of a young boy, Jack, who digs up corpses to sell them to medical students on one part, and the other part is the story of a young girl of nobility who really wants to become a physician and a surgeon, but struggles to do so in a still male-dominated world. Now it is when she gets barred from the proper medical education at the university that those two story arcs meet. This book ended up being a very agreeable read. I did it as an audiobook, and the narrator has this excellent Scottish accent that really suits the vibe and the setting of the book. Now, as I understand it, it's a duology. I'm really interested in the second part, which is already out, so I will read or listen to that one very soon, I guess. It is actually a very agreeable read. So if you love that darker setting of Edinburgh, Scotland, and the a bit gruesome tale of early medicine, then this is absolutely the book for you. Anatomy, a love story by Dana Schwartz, was my first surprise. Next surprise was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is a YA book. There is no doubt about it, this book is YA in every sense of the word, but it didn't bother me. This is one of those murder mysteries that you can actually try to solve as a reader, which is something I very much enjoy. As you advance through the whole investigation, you hit the same dead ends, red herrings and plot twists as the characters do. This book reads a bit like a true crime podcast. Again, this is a YA book, it feels like a YA book, it is written like a YA book, and if you don't really enjoy that kind of books, then this might not be for you. But if you can look past that, this is actually a good story. So, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson was my second surprise for this year. Number 3 was They Never Learn by Leigh Fargo. I've got 3 words for you. Female serial killer. And to be honest, that's not something we read about very often. So, color me intrigued. And I must say, after finishing this one, it is really, really well done. This is a story of a female college professor who selects the worst man on campus for that year and kills them. But it is also the story about the victim of one of those really, really bad men. And as the story progresses, the two storylines start to entangle. If you love thrillers, if you love crime, if you love serial killers, then this is absolutely a book to pick up. Perhaps I had hoped the end would have been a little bit different, but let's not allow that to spoil the fun. They Never Learn by Leigh Fargo. If you're a fan of this genre, absolutely pick this one up. Last on my surprise list was Finlay Donovan is Killing It by El Cosimano. Another crime novel, another murder mystery with another main female character. Finlay Donovan isn't your average literary detective. She's in over her head. She fumbles and bumbles through the investigation. She fluffs up on several occasions. And it is very, very entertaining to read. This is not highbrow literature. This is not a very deep psychological thriller. This book is just a good time. What the Thursday Murder Club series didn't really do for me, this book did, and I will be checking out the sequels. So if you're looking for an easy read that is entertaining, that offers something else, then Finlay Donovan by El Cosimano is actually killing it. And let's end today with the books I absolutely love this year. These are books that will probably end up very high in the best books of 2023 list, and I will be rereading them on several occasions. And first one up is Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune restored my faith in books that are labeled cozy. Yes, this is a very cozy read, but it actually brings the story. It brings interesting characters. It is very heartfelt, it is very emotional, and I absolutely loved it. This was my first T.J. Klune novel I read, and I will be wading through their whole back catalogue to see if some other hidden gems are to be found. It is a cozy magical realism story with a bit of A Christmas Carol by Dickens sprinkled all over it. Absolutely loved it, absolutely will keep recommending it. First book I loved this year, Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. Next, very best of the best books for this year is the only non-fiction book on this list, and it is Why Women Grow by Alice Vincent. This book is a collection of essays, interviews, stories, thoughts, musings, you name it, by a wide array of very different and interesting women. They tell their story, the author weighs in with her own experiences, and they find what all connects them. It is a love for plants, for the outdoors, for nature. Sometimes the stories are dark and very emotional, but they are never without hope. When the winter is at its most harsh moments, there is always this hope that spring will come and flowers will grow again. Yes, it is down with the patriarchy, but let's do it in a humane and caring way. I have recommended this book before and I will keep recommending it. One of my absolute best books of 2023, Why Women Grow by Alice Vincent. And then, and this will be no surprise, there's Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. Yellowface might not be a book for everyone, but it was absolutely a book for me. Yes, you will probably hate the characters in this book, but that's the whole point. It feels very now and it touches points that we have to keep talking about. I am in awe of the way R.F. Kuang manages to reinvent herself as an author. Each book she writes is something different, and with each book she writes, I can see how she has grown as an author and as a person. I was a fan of Babel already, and she has become one of my auto-buy authors with this book. Not everyone will agree, but one of the best books I read this year, Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. And we end today with a novella. This is a book you probably might not know, you don't see it on social media, and in my opinion it is one of the most underrated books out there. I'm talking about The Deep by River Solomon. The Deep is a bit of a fantasy story. It is a story about a hidden tribe of merfolk who are the descendants of pregnant African slave women that were thrown into the sea by their slave masters. Now, while living with such memories and such a history is very hard on someone, they decided to load all of their memories and all of their feelings about it onto one person who is the historian, and it is his or her task to remember. And it absolutely destroys them. So what do? Do you save yourself? Knowing that by doing so, you abandon all of your culture, all of your traditions, and actually your people? Or do you do what is expected from you? But in doing so, you will probably end up destroying yourself. It is an impossible choice, and it is a very emotional book. It is a difficult read, it is a hard read, but it is absolutely worth it. It is a slap in the face, it is a punch in the gut, but sometimes that's exactly what I'm looking for in a book. So challenge yourself and pick this one up. The Deep by River Solomon, an absolute hidden gem. And now I want to hear from you. What is the best book you've read this year so far? And why not, what is the worst? Let me know down below in the comments, I will talk books some more. That's it for me for today. Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, do like and subscribe. And if you need some more recommendations, why not give this one a try?